Hello, Phoenix Collective. Welcome back to another episode of Taboo Talks with Krystal, where we tackle the tough conversations that often get overlooked, but are essential for our healing and growth. I'm your host, Krystal Casey, and today I'm honored to bring you this very powerful episode. Before we begin, I want to provide a trigger warning. In today's conversation, we will discuss topics related to sexual violence, trauma, and survival. If these subjects are too difficult for you at this time, please feel free to pause or skip this episode. Take care of yourself and remember to only listen when you are ready. Today, my guest is Monique Cunningham, a survivor and the founder of WOW Toronto, a space dedicated to empowering women-identified survivors of sexual violence. Monique's story is one of courage and resilience, and she's here today to share her journey and the ways that she's creating safe, healing spaces for others. This conversation is about moving beyond survival and stepping into empowerment. Monique's experience is a testament to the strength it takes to reclaim your voice and find community. If you or someone you know has ever struggled with sexual violence and trauma, or if you want to learn more about supporting survivors, this episode is for you. Let's dive into this conversation with Monique Cunningham. You know, your work is very, very powerful, and I know so many of our listeners are going to resonate very deeply with your story and with your mission. So, to start, could you just share a bit about your journey and what led you to create WOW Toronto?
Sure. While Toronto has been a journey from the start. Initially, from the beginning, I've always wanted to give back to the community and empower women. So I am a rape survivor. I got raped when I was 15 by two boys. And I was going through a lot through the transition of being a survivor at such a young age, not understanding what that truly meant and how it would shape me as an individual growing up. So as I got older. I realized how traumatic of an experience it was going through all of those things. And not being aware of how prevalent that experience would have affected my relationships. It affected my trust with, not just, women or society, but also like specifically more with men. And so going into my romantic relationships, I've always had trust issues and self-esteem issues. And it did not go away as I got older. It got better as I got older, but that traumatic experience and those feelings stayed with me. So when going into school, college and everything like that, I realized that I really wanted to do something that inspired other women. I just didn't know what it was yet. And then during COVID, I was working as a customer service rep, and I wasn't feeling passionate about what I was doing. And I had an emotional breakdown at work. Everyone's working from home and everything like that. And I wasn't feeling fulfilled. And I knew that as I got older, I've always been going to school, taking some sort of program in relation to community outreach. And whether it's, social work or something like that pertaining to, women. And so I was like, why don't I figure out how to start my own passion project working and doing something that I'm passionate about. I couldn't get a job in the field, so I was like, next best thing is start my own. And so I kind of did my research, figuring out number one, what really am I trying to do? within this industry. So I looked at and did some market research in terms of what is lacking within the Toronto area. And is for survivors of sexual violence. There is none that provides ongoing support. So there's always been services that have just an end date. So whether it's counseling, whether it's maybe a program that you can take, but it's between until a length of time. There is no program or organization, I should say, that offers a service specifically for survivors anytime. So I did some market research in terms of interviewing some participants who are survivors. And I asked them, gave them, some general information and idea of what I'm trying to do, what ideas I have, and asked them their feedback in terms of their experience, what they have used in terms of the programs and services within the city. Some of them have done counseling or currently were in counseling, and they said it was so expensive. It was very expensive, but they were just kept getting re-traumatized. Being in counseling, it didn't really help them, or they they were provided with the counseling, but weren't given, the, you know, kind of services or support after the counseling sessions were over. So they didn't know where to go after that. So it kind of gave me the idea, okay, well, clearly there's a need for this kind of support or service where they can feel that they have this safe space and support, but also they can go somewhere where it's not an end date per se. It is somewhere where they can go at any time. So that's where my idea generated to come up with this passion project. And I named it Watching Over Women Empowerment Center. Wow, Toronto for short.
Wow, that's amazing. That's such an incredible story. First of all, I want to say I'm sorry for what you went through, and I'm holding space for you for that.
Thank you.
I think, especially for those of us with a mission, we tend to kind of gloss over our story, especially when we've shared it a bunch. So I want to hold space for that for you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much.
I was writing down notes as you were speaking, and I have quite a few questions that spurred from that. So if you don't mind backing up to the trauma that you experienced, did you tell anyone after it happened?
Yes, I did. I told my best friend at the time, and I had told her not to tell anybody. Mm-hmm. And when I told her, it was after I had taken a long, long hot shower, and I was just in tears. And she had said, "Monique, what's going on? What's wrong?" And I, at first I was hesitant to say anything because, when you're 15, it is not something really known to discuss within your peers. It is kind of, I was unsure because at the end of the day, when the situation happened, I was being held down on my bed, but I said no, but I stopped saying no. So in my head, I was thinking, was it really rape? Or was it not? Because yes, while I said no in the beginning, I stopped and I felt defeated. And so when I told her, I realized actually, no, it was rape. And when I told her not to say anything, I did not want to feel the backlash that I knew I would get. And I think it's just more the backlash with my mom and my friends and being, made fun of. And that was a hard time for me.
Yeah, gosh, I can relate on so many levels. It is so hard. You're right, especially when you're that age to open up and say it, and that guilt of, well, did I do enough to stop it? Is it my fault? Like, did I, like it's a head trip for sure. So you asked your friend not to say anything, but now you share your story openly. So when did you make that shift?
It's a really great question. I made that shift during a time in my life where I was in a relationship for 2 years, and my first real relationship, and I was living with my partner. And it was my first serious relationship in my adulthood. And there was a moment throughout our relationship where I had physically put my hands on him. And we were going through, we had an argument, and it was, kind of back and forth. There was an issue with trust. So right there, I felt that he was probably talking to another woman. And, I was so angry, right? And that was, at that moment, I didn't know what it was, but looking back, I know that was a triggering moment for me of not being heard, not being respected and valued. And I put my hands on him, which is definitely not right. And it was at that moment where I said, no, I need to do something about this. It's been over 15 years since it happened at that time, and it was still affecting me. So I knew something had to happen.
So what did you do?
Well, after obviously realizing that he was not my person, we ended things, and I moved back home at my mom's. I had a long really look at myself. I did a lot of self-reflecting, and I didn't go to therapy or anything, but I did join a support group for survivors, and it's of all types of gender-based violence. This support group really helped me intertwine my feelings and figure out what's really important to me and what exactly is this that I was feeling. And I really kind of look back on things now, and I'm thinking, or I was thinking at the time, that what I want to do, or not even want to do, what I need to do is to create this foundation of support and a place of that provides awareness and advocacy. But not just that, because at the end of the day, as much as that happened to me, I am more than that. I am a person that is a go-getter. I am a daughter. I am now a wife. I am so much more things than that, than a survivor. And I wanted to create not just something that offers the capacity for survivors to continue on their healing journey with support, but also inspire them to empower themselves, to bring back that joy, bring back that laughter, that feeling of happiness that was once taken from them.
So support is so important. I 100% agree. With your support system, can you share one or two things that you did to work through the trauma?
The one thing that when I first started Wow Toronto, I was working with a marketing agency that they were helping me create my brand. And that included, our slogan, the coloring, everything like that. It represents what I wanted to create. And the first thing that they said, in order to create this for me, they asked me to write down my story. And it took a while because I didn't yes, it's in my head, the memories and everything, they will never go away. But to put that to paper, I didn't know. I didn't know how to do it and articulate those feelings. It took me a while, it took me a few weeks. But then when I wrote it and I gave it to my mom to read, because going through all of this when I was 15, my mom didn't really actually really fully know the full story of what happened, because I went to the court and I was on trial. I was up there and saying, everything what was going on. She wasn't in the courtroom. So she didn't really actually hear everything. So when I wrote my story, and it was like 2 pages long, she really read that and she broke down. And she said, the first thing that she said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't there.
Yeah, sharing your story is so powerful. There is literally so much power in authentically opening up, allowing yourself to be vulnerable, and sharing that
Yeah.
through words,
Mm-hmm.
written, oral. It's incredible. And of course, having the right support, not just immediately following the trauma, but like you were saying, ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible. And I feel like that's a piece that so many people miss. I feel like in my case, a lot of times I was told therapy and medication.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. And that's just a piece of the puzzle, which what
Mm-hmm.
is what led me to open up the aerial yoga studio and everything. Because I was like, it's not just that piece is great, but we need the whole we're a whole person.
Yeah.
And our trauma isn't in just bits and pieces, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
going to permeate every
Mm-hmm.
part of your life, the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I love, love, love what you're doing. Women watching over women. Did I say that right?
Watching over women.
Watching over women.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
That's so amazing. What what does Wow Toronto offer? If somebody needed services or they came, what kind of help could they expect to receive?
Well, the first thing is definitely a lot of love and support. All of the members of our team are like family. And we obviously understand how important it is to continue with that support as people go through or individuals go through their healing journeys. So we do offer a 12-week workshop program that does focus specifically on trust and self-esteem. The reason why we focus on these two aspects is because upon my market research and my interviewing with survivors, these are the two things that have come up consistently, where survivors have had uh, areas of improvement, or require areas of improvement. And these are things that, with me as a survivor, have gone through, um, where those two things have been affected because of my traumatic experience. So this 12-week workshop program focuses specifically on those, incorporating, obviously, we have a facilitator that would facilitate this, but we also we'll have guest speakers that come in, and we'll have different topics each week that are subtopics to that. So for the first 6 weeks, we'll focus on trust, and we'll have different subtopics that correlate to that. And then the second half of the workshop will focus on self-esteem, and the subtopics will focus on correlate to those. And we'll have, activities, whether it's group or individual. So it's definitely wanting to encourage participation, but also allow survivors or participants to also look within themselves and do a lot of reflecting on their own time and when they feel that they want to, what to feel is right. So that is the first part of what we offer. We are only offering that right now because we're still in the starting phases or stages of the uh, workshop, or sorry, of the organization. What we want to do moving forward is obviously create more services. So my vision is have weekly empowerment group sessions. So these weekly sessions are going to be different than the workshops, where the topics for these are going to be a little bit more different. So we'll talk about more about career searching, or doing like things that are not specific, just honing in on the traumatic experience, but just within everything that incorporates who you are as an individual. And then we have also ongoing regular events. So we'll do, whether it's virtual or in person, we'll attend events, we'll host events. So this will incorporate the empowerment aspect of our organization, the bringing joy back into that we want to instill. So those are the services. We also offer support referral services with other organizations or agencies. So that's also something that we do offer as well.
I love it. Our missions are so aligned. It's amazing. We are like parallel to one another. I love it. Quick question. The workshop that you were talking about at the beginning, is that in person or is that virtual?
Virtual.
Okay,
I think
anyone can join. That's awesome.
exactly. Yeah. And it's amazing because we had our first cohort a few months ago, like I would say 2 months ago. And we had a participant who's from the US, who was amazed by, what Wow Toronto stands for and incorporates. And it was great to see that not just someone that's in Canada that is interested in this, but it's someone in the like a different country. And that's what my ultimate goal is to gravitate to everyone, because it doesn't just happen in one area or one country. It's
It's a
all over.
worldwide issue.
Exactly.
100%. One of the myths that you would like to challenge is that being a survivor kind of defines everything about a person's life and identity. Do you want to explain more about that and how women can embrace their full selves beyond just being a survivor?
Yeah. I think while it's super important, and I think we've discussed this, throughout this conversation, that it's important to touch on and hone in on the traumatic experience and being a survivor. And while that is so amazing, um, however, that's not all who I am. I am a woman. I am a person of color. I am a leader. I am an entrepreneur. These are things that not everyone can say that they are. And these are things that should be, you know, um, they are successes. They should be celebrated. And why should those be belittled because of a traumatic experience that happened to me? So I think, you know, the whole, stigma of, okay, well, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry this happened to you. And, you know, this is who it is, who you are, and feeling that kind of people wanting to, they feel sorry for me and all of that. And while I do appreciate that, I want you to also see, okay, well, I'm so sorry, but oh my goodness, look what you're doing. That is great. Because as much as how hard it is to start your own business, especially something that you're passionate about, to me, it doesn't feel hard. This is effortless to do.
Because it's your heart's passion, 100%,
Exactly.
where you're supposed to be. I love
Mhm.
that. I think For me personally, being able to, I don't know if I felt it so much from the outside as I did from the inside,
Mm-hmm.
of carrying that this happened. And every time I would look at someone, especially as a child recovering from childhood abuse, I would look at people and feel the weight of my own shame and
Mm-hmm.
feel like they could see my trauma and what had happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so I carried that with me, and the secret was so heavy and so dark that it kind of overtook everything until I began to open up and to share about it and to let it out. And then I realized, okay, that was just a very small piece of me.
Yeah.
And like you said, there is so, so much more.
Mm-hmm.
I love that we're able to open that up for anyone who is listening. And the last question that I have, I end every episode with the same question. One of my biggest favorite sayings is, I never lose. I win or I learn. So, my question is, what is your biggest failure so far? And what did you learn from it?
Wow. Um, that's a tough one. Because as you, I don't look at it as a failure. I look at it as a learning experience. However, I am very hard on myself. It took a lot for me to ask for help to start this organization. And because I know what I'm trying to do, I know that it's needed, and I know that this can be successful. Um, and because I'm so anxious for it to just be out there, um, there's been moments where I just go ahead and run with it and don't think about, kind of having the foundation or layout of my idea. And sometimes that works because, usually when you just kind of just go with the flow and just, see what happens, sometimes it, throw it up and it lands in the right place. And then other times it doesn't. And I think one of my biggest failures would have been having or creating a team in the beginning and bringing people on that were not really aligned with Wow Toronto's vision and mission. While I thought that they were in the beginning, unfortunately, there's been decisions that I've had to make along the way where I've had to let people go. And at one point, it happened more than once. And I was talking to a coach, and I was talking to her about, oh my goodness, what am I doing wrong? Am I not a good leader? Am I not choosing the right people? Like, what am I not doing right? Um, and I realized the way I was going about it needed to change. They say doing something over and over the same way is like, that's, insanity. And so I was like, why don't I just pivot and change it up a bit? And having that mindset and knowing how and when to do that, I think that's where success comes from. And that's what happened. And now I have an amazing team of volunteers that I couldn't ask for anything more from them.
I love it. I love it. I am so happy for you. Monique, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your story and all of the inspiring work that you're doing. It's
Thank you so
amazing.
much, Krystal.
You are so welcome. Before you leave, could you just let our listeners know how they can connect with you? How can they participate in your workshop, and how can they just follow you to keep up with what you're doing?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is follow us on Instagram at wow_Toronto. We are heavily our presence is heavily affected on there. And there is where you can get the link to our website to find more information on our 12-week workshop. We are looking to start our cohort number 2 in the next month. So we're looking for participants to sign up. We also have our website, wowtoronto.org. You can contact me, Monique.Cunningham at wowtoronto.org, for more information or just to say hi, really. And yeah, we encourage anyone, don't matter where you are, what area or what part of the journey you're at, to just reach out.
Awesome. And I'll be sure to share that link in the show notes as well so you can grab it there. Monique, thank you for trusting us with your story. And thank you for the work you're doing to create spaces where survivors can reclaim their voices.
Awesome. Thank you, Krystal, for having me.
Listeners, if Monique's story has touched you, or if you know someone who might find support in her words, please consider sharing this episode. Conversations like these have the potential to be lifelines, and sharing them can be the start of breaking cycles and creating change. As always, remember, you are stronger than you think. You're not alone, and every small step forward matters. Keep showing up for yourself, and I'll see you back here next week.